And it's now amazing. Welcome. Today we're here for the ApprovalMax deep dive, the ApprovalMax Masterclass, and joined by a good friend, Brendan Lucas, my mate. How are you?
Good, thanks, Trent. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Now, as everyone is starting to pile into the webinar, I hope you're well. I hope you've got a cup of tea or a coffee, or you're fully caffeinated, because this is going to be a fantastic session and we can't wait to get stuck in. So before we do that, I like to check that everyone can chat with everyone. So I've just turned the chat on. If you just want to say, hey, Trent, I can see you. Hey, Brendan, I can see your bright green backdrop that says ApprovalMax on it. That would be awesome. So you can do that in the chat or the Q&A. Hello, Jade, Emily, good to see you. Hey, Philip, awesome, love that. Feel free to tell us where you're dialing in from and what your weather looks like. My sky is grey, it's overcast. What's it like down in the Shire, Brendan?
Mate, it's all very somber today after last night's game. So I got the blinds down hiding.
Yeah, actually, we're just so busy, I forgot it was even on. Then I had to look at it this morning and the scores, like, oh, that's not good. We didn't do so well. All right, we've got people from cold and sunny WA. I didn't think cold existed in WA. You're probably telling me it's still 23 degrees. Overcast in New Zealand, Wellington, Harvey Bay. Yeah, that's where I want to be. That's always the best part about reading the chat, is knowing where I'd rather be hanging out. So awesome. So glad that you're all here with us. This session is recorded, so if you want to play this back afterwards, you totally can, and you'll get a copy of that sometime soon. If you do have any questions, like questions you'd like me to ask Brendan, you can do that in the Q&A function. That way I don't miss it. The chat is good for just, engaging in live, but if you've got a specific thing that you'd like to ask, use the Q&A function. Now, Brendan, let's talk about you. I'm going to introduce you now. So you're head of accounting here at ApprovalMax. You also run an accounting firm called Next Dimension. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you ended up being here in this chair today.
Yeah, thanks, Trent, and welcome everyone. So my brief background was grew up on the South Coast, New South Wales, moved up to Sydney, got a cadetship with one of the big four, did about 9 years with them, and then broke away and eventually started my own firm. And then from that, specialised in the non-for-profit sector. It is a big part of our business, as well as privately owned businesses. So out of that, being a zero focus firm, always looking at different add-ons. So a few years ago, we stumbled across ApprovalMax and found it really solved a missing link in our sort of accounting department service offering that we were doing to clients. So we've been on board sort of ever since as a partner, and then more recently got this head of accounting gig. So it's a really great opportunity for me to share the benefits of ApprovalMax that we see for our team as well as our clients, and sharing that to other business owners and accountants and bookkeepers so they can benefit as well.
Yeah, love that. That's awesome. And I stumbled across, I've known ApprovalMax for a long time. I've known some of the key team for a very long time being out of this space, but I've had a chance to get a lot closer with it in the last, since the start of the year. And A, come a long way, but B, so functional. Every time I look at even just the workflow building side of it, I get excited. I just love things that are so easy and flexible and customizable. Point of this session is obviously to do the deep dive and get a little bit under the hood. So we want this to be practical. We want this to be educational. We want you to come out of this with maybe more questions that you didn't have coming in. You think, oh, but what about this? What about that? That's cool. So if you've got questions, throw them in. We're going to try and throw as many as we can at Brendan. But the whole point of this is that Brendan's going to share his screen, jump in and show you exactly how he uses it with his clients on a day-to-day basis. So you're on this call, you could be an SME, you're a business owner, finance person trying to put better procedures and things in place. You could also be an accountant or a bookkeeper that's thinking, hey, I want to implement ApprovalMax for my clients because I want to offer new payable service offerings, or I want to increase the controls that we have on all of our clients as well. So there's a few of you here. We're going to try and help address a lot of those pieces. Brendan, I'm going to throw to you to start sharing your screen and start giving us the beginning of the deep dive.
Awesome. Thanks, Trent. So I'll just get that organized now. And then if someone can throw into the chat that they can see my screen once we're up and running, that'll be good. So what I'll start off with is just a bit of a zero story.
I can see your
Thank
screen.
you, Trent.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, so before we jump on the ApprovalMax side, so what I've got here, I've got a demo file set up under zero. And what's really key is to understand the different tags that a bill or status that a bill will have in zero. So what we've got here is draft, awaiting approval, awaiting payment, and then paid as far as a live bill. So where ApprovalMax kicks in is when your bill is in the awaiting approval status. So that's the key. So when you plug in ApprovalMax, where before you might be using Dext or HubDoc or something, and you might put the bill straight into awaiting payment. If you want ApprovalMax to work, you need to be setting that to go to awaiting approval, because that's when ApprovalMax triggers and go, hey, there's something new in awaiting approval. Let's go follow the rules and start that workflow. So I think that's just the perfect part from an oversight. So what you can see here at the moment, I've got a couple of bills which have already been approved, and I've got a number here which are already under the awaiting approval bucket. And that's what we'll have a bit of a look at first. So I'll come across here, and what we've got at the moment, so under your view of ApprovalMax on the left-hand side, so if you've got other clients, you can see those here. I'm under my, which one have I gone to now? Let me just fix that up. I've clicked the wrong button. There we go. I'm back. So I'm under my NDA ApprovalMax demo, and at the moment I've picked on the tag which is on approval. So this is basically showing me any bills that are in that awaiting approval section. And at the moment I'm logged in as myself. So this is good if you want to have that oversight. So for my team, that means that we can then see for a client any bills that are on approval, which is really helpful when we're trying to do like a payment run for them or figure out how, as to who we've got to chase. And what you can, the main way I would look at that is you can see at the bottom, we'll start to talk about workflows in a second. You can see where it's up to. So we're actually waiting on the business unit manager at the moment to approve that. But I will show you a report later. We can actually get a really a neat view of this. And it's something we share with clients a lot in the lead up to payment runs, so that on one page PDF, they can see exactly who are waiting on to approve certain bills. So we're in here. So a couple of things I guess I wanted to point out is these are the bills waiting approval. So you can see here, I've got a bill here from TOA at the moment that's going to my consulting category. So I can see all the relevant information about the date, the due date, reference. This is all coming straight out of zero data. I've got the PDF here. So again, I can click here, I can see that PDF. Good thing to remember is on the right-hand side here, you've got the side-by-side view. So I can click here, and then I can now see my PDF on the left-hand side, and then I can see that ApprovalMax data on the right. I'll turn that off, and we'll go back to ApprovalMax. And a feature which came out a bit over a year ago, which I love, and I use a lot internally, is the budget feature. So some of you might not have turned this on. And so what it does is you can actually plug in your zero budget, which your budget or forecast, into ApprovalMax. So then it can tell you how much is left of your budget if you approve this bill. So this is really helpful for me here going, oh, well, I thought I was going to spend 15 grand this month. I'm pretty happy it's only coming at 12 and a half. So that's really helpful. And we might see some other bills later where it comes in at a different number. So that's usually a thing I tell clients to look out for, is have that turned on. Because if you've got a red cross, they're definitely the ones you shouldn't be just approving willy-nilly. And then from here, as I said before, we can see where it's up to as far as approval. And you can leave comments in too as well. So if you're not going to approve it, say, look, I'm waiting to discuss with Sarah, I can put that in here so that sometimes it's for my own benefit or for other team members. They can work out why I've been sitting on this bill for a couple of days and haven't approved it. So that's really helpful there. So they're just some of the things I'll do once I get a bill that is ready for approval. But what we might do now is actually move back to how the workflows work. So and then we can actually we can reset them, And then I'll show you in action from the email that you get as an approver what that looks like. So let's go into, I come across to my left-hand side menu, going to go to workflows and settings, and I'm going to click on my approval workflows. And I'm going to go into my bill workflow because we're worried about bills at this point. I click on that, and this gives me a little matrix of the story. So what this is telling me at the moment, and I'm focusing really here on the approval steps through to authorization, is I've got the business unit manager and program lead approving some things, then a business unit manager can approve, and then myself can approve at a different level. So what this means, this is your workflow. So if I go and just look at step one, or approval step one, if we click on this table, this allows you to look at what's going on. And so what you can see here, the rule that's set is for any bill that comes in awaiting approval, the business unit manager should approve it if, in this instance, this consulting and accounting is the account code. So what that means is only the bills that go to that account code do I want the business unit manager to approve first. For everything else, because I've said account does not match that same code, will go to the program lead. So this is a way where you sort of want someone, I guess, more junior in the organization to be first line of defense of approving bills. But there might be some bills where you go, you know what? I don't want them looking at my legal bills. I don't want them looking at my consulting bills or whatever the case may be, recruitment fees. You can then, if you've got your chart of accounts detailed enough, you can then dissect that. So that's really helpful. The other one that I see used a lot is around supplier. So particularly say if we've got, if you're doing reimbursements by a bill, so you may want to set up that a certain approver can't approve their own bills. So in this instance, what I could change here for say the program lead is go, if the supplier doesn't match, and I'm just hoping here I've got them as a person. No, I do program lead because that's going to be, that's their name. So now they won't approve bills that are assigned to them. So what I probably need to do is work out, well, who's going to be that first approver? So what I might do is then say, well, I'm going to add, if the supplier matches the program lead. So if supplier matches program lead, accounting matches this, then I've got the ability there to set those rules to get them going to the right person. Now, this is our step one. So then from there, I click done. What I can also do, which is really cool, is I then go update the workflow. And I can say now there's a pop-up to say, well, why did I make this change? I didn't want the program lead approving their own bills. Go confirm, which means later on when I want to find why did I change it, I can revert to it. Another handy feature, oh, sorry, I'll pause. So what's happened here, it said, hang on, you've changed the rules. You've got some bills awaiting approval. Do you want to restart the process? Now, I will restart the process in this instance, just so I can get some emails to show you what happens to the approvers. So I'll go restart there. And now it's basically rerunning the rules on those bills from scratch. What I wanted to show you, if you're trying to, a big part of sort of designing these is you talk to the client, work out who's going to approve what bills, if there's any special rules, trying to work out how they do it now and how they might want to change that sort of authorization process. To get sign off that you've got it set up right, because that's really important from a risk point of view, is you can click on this little PDF button here, and what you'll actually get is an easy to read document that you can actually share with the client and show them exactly what the approval rules are, and they can come back and say whether you've got it right or not. I know in the past, before this button was there, we used to do it in Excel, but it was really a double up, and there was always a risk that what was in Excel didn't agree to ApprovalMax. So I think this is a really good feature, which is worthwhile using.
I love that. That's good. Visibility is key, right? Like you want to be able to clearly show and explain who's the approver, what's the rule, and have that visibility, because without, sure, you might have the visibility that you've built in ApprovalMax, but I think being able to have this as a lot of businesses like to have these things documented, right? So yeah, love this. This is awesome. Really cool.
Yeah. And really from the owner or the CEO point of view, they don't want to be playing in the ApprovalMax settings. That's why they would look at the in-house or external accountant or bookkeeper to set this up and understand, how to make it all work. They just want to come in and approve bills and know that they can trust the system. So that's a good way to get their sign off on what you've set up. One of the things here, then you've got the second approver. So what I set up here easily, this says, hey, if it's over $500, then I want the business unit manager to approve. And then if it's over $5,000, then I need to approve it. So that sort of sets up our flow from, so say if I had a $200 invoice and it wasn't consulting and accounting, then it should go to the program lead first. Then it would go to the business unit manager. It wouldn't go to the business unit manager. It would be approved because it's only a $200 bill. If that was a $20,000 bill, it would go program lead, then the business unit manager, and then to myself. Again, really good thing I like about this is, especially doing with non-for-profits, there's a real challenge between boards getting involved between strategic and operational issues. And one of those is simply is payments. So where an approval of bills to pay. So where you can demonstrate your governance and controls around this, it can allow the management team to actually run the organization, manage their own budgets, but still pick a threshold where, let's say, the board member or whatever may need to approve a bill before it gets released. But yeah, we've found that with this sort of system, we've been able to have a much higher threshold where I had before some clients where the board member would want to see every bill, or the CEO would have to look at every bill before payment. We brought this in and they said, look, if someone's managing their own budget and they've already signed off on it, unless it's over $5,000, look, I trust them. That's why they're here. So it really does, it makes our life easier because we know where things are going. But from a client point of view, that sort of business non-for-profit, all that mucking around of a stamp, trying to work out where the bill was, it wasn't in the system yet because it wasn't approved. Really having transparency over where the bill approval process is up to, knowing you've even got a bill. So coming back to that, a big issue we used to have is that when everyone was in the office, the bill would go between someone's desk and someone's desk for approval, stamp, initial, whatever else. It wouldn't even get to accounts till it had all the signatures. But by then that could take days or weeks. And they're already getting phone calls asking, why haven't you paid us? But they didn't even have the bill in the system. So this really turns it around where you can say, yep, we've got the bill. We're just waiting for sign off from the business unit manager. Look, I can follow that up and we'll get back to you. So it really does allow you to have a much better oversight and controls over your accounts payable.
Got a question for you, mate.
Awesome.
Tim, thank you for your question. Keep them coming. Can an approver change the data? Example, can they change the account codes or the GST?
Good question. So an approver can't, but a reviewer can. So what we'll do here in this first step, we've got a reviewer. So we can go in here. So we just got approvers and reviewers, and I can click on my table and jump in here. So at the moment, I've set up the program lead. They can review the coding. So if I jump in here and I can say any account, and so we'll test this out shortly. So I'll go done. And I shouldn't have to update the workflow, but I'll just update it anyway. And then we should be good. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come in as the program lead. Now, for my benefit, I'm just going to double check which email address I set up the program lead for, so I log in properly. What do we have here? So the program lead is Gmail, too easy. So I'm now going to log in to ApprovalMax over here on my Firefox, and I'm going to log in as this person. So jump this in. So basically, I'm no longer Brendan Lucas. I'm going to be the program lead. And so then we can get the experience from that person. So I'm just got to possibly log out. Let me log out. And then we're gonna log back in. As the program lead. Let's see how I got. Remember my password I set. Pretty good, looks like. Alrighty, so I don't have any billing subscriptions. That's good. I don't want to as a program lead. What I do want to do is look at bills and approval. So I can see here that I've actually got some bills for approval. Now, what I've got to do, so see this Atani bill's come in. So this is a legal expense that's come in for $660. Now I've got here bill actions edit. So I'm going to click on this field here. And now I can come in and I can change stuff. Now there's some stuff I can't change. So I can't change the contact or this sort of basic details, but I can change the amount. So if someone's typed it in wrong and it was actually 670 and I don't want it to go to legal and I want it to go to entertainment and I want to change the GST coding, that can be changed. And then I can save and approve. So I can say, you know what, I've checked it, I'm all good now. Obviously, again, I can click on that attachment at the bottom and see the bill. Now, in this instance, we're going to put it back to, it was 660, but we'll just do this for fun so we can see how that works. I'll go to my side-by-side view. I've got my PDF now on my left. Here, I'm updating things as I want. So we'll pretend that it said 670. I wanted it to go to entertainment. I can now save and approve. Doesn't match the total. Well, that's no good. What have I done here? Total analysis, please correct.
I'll say I've got a few questions for you when you get through this one as well.
Yeah. I've got to do the total amount. Sorry, I forgot about that. So I can change the code. I've got to do the total amount. We'll do one next where we've got to change the amount. So if I go save and approve, I fix the coding and then I've approved it. So then it will go on to the next person. So it's a really useful feature to have that reviewer access. But just have a think about who gets access for that. So we've got some instances where some clients where we don't have it turned on for anyone because we basically say we would rather them reject it and for us to fix it. Where for some, where they've got more of a hands-on internal accounts team, we will let them be that reviewer, but the higher levels won't. Reason for that is they were doing it in Xero anyway, so we might as well do it for ApprovalMax. And for the ones that we weren't giving that access to, what we found was if we gave them that reviewer access, we never found out that our team made mistakes on the coding or the automation with like Dext or HubDoc. So I think it's one worthwhile just thinking through how you want to use it and for which clients and for which person should have that reviewer access.
Yeah.
Brent, questions?
Question. So Tim, back with a question. Love it. Keep them coming. Is there a recurring purchase order functionality, e.g. or i.e. monthly rent?
That is a good question. I haven't had to look at that before, so I might I'll make a note of that one for the ApprovalMax support team, which I think are sitting here on the webinar today for them to come back. Otherwise, I do know. Because I'm a user rather than the complete technical guru. There is a webinar, I think this afternoon at 3 o'clock that there will be a link coming into the chat later. So the technical specialist will definitely answer that question, but yeah, unfortunately I haven't had that use case so far.
Yeah, cool. Awesome.
I can see the benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one's from Mark. Mark, thanks for your question. It appears you're using roles/titles, program lead as an example, versus actual email. Is this a feature of ApprovalMax, or can I make a program lead role and all the folks with program lead title/role can approve?
Yeah, good point. So what I've actually done as far as the users, that was how I named them. And that was probably partly for my benefit so that I knew whether Tim, Chris or Sally was the hierarchy. So that is their first and last name. So when you come to do approvals, it is at a user level. So what I will do is I'll jump back in to my Brendan account and just go through that workflow again. And so you can, you have to pick a person. So I haven't seen where you could do a group. So if I just remove this person so you can see, so if I wanted to start again for some reason, you've basically got to pick a person. But what you could do is if say there was what I think the question is, well, can you have a group of people to approve the same things? You can have more than one person at that first level. So then whoever approves it first, well, that could move it on. So that could be an option as well. But you can't cluster people at the moment, as far as I'm aware, into a bucket, because the idea is, from an ownership point of view or accountability, for each sort of, my take is, for each line item in the accounts, I really want one person to be responsible. There might be a hierarchy above them, but sometimes sharing that then ends up with a bit of a blame game, and you then got to dissect your actual account coding to work out who approved what. So it may be worthwhile, where that's the case, to maybe look at your chart of accounts, whether you can split that up more, so that it's a lot clearer approval workflow.
Yeah, awesome. So I've got like 5 for you now, because you're doing such a good. You're doing a good job. Everyone's loading up. This one is from Spring. Thank you, Spring. After you make a change, can we save without approval? Now, this was going back to something you were.
Yeah. Good question. I don't know. So let's try it. So if I've clicked on the edit mode, no, you can't. So you've only got a save and approve button. And I guess the idea is, if you're there as that review approval step, it's right to be approved or it's not. So if you're going to go and edit it, it sort of means that you're ready to sign off on it. So no, you can only edit it when you're ready to approve. How could you get around that? Possibly in the notes section, you can maybe leave a comment, but it wouldn't pop up or anything to remind you. So I guess it would either try to do it all in the one go, or leave a note and then deal with it at the when you're ready to actually pass your approval step.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
Mate, they're coming in thick and fast. So
cool.
You're doing a great job. Sheena asked, is there a method that hides the irrelevant approver details when a bill needs more than one approver? So
I'm just trying to understand the question. So is there a method that hides the irrelevant approver details when a bill needs more than one approver? So I guess in this instance, let's go and look at what's on approval. So I'm here as the program lead at the moment. So, okay, I can't see that one. So let's go to my view let's go in here. Let's check that out. So I'm going to go back to on approval, and I can now see this one. So right now, this TOA invoice, it's a 12 grand invoice, so it's going to go right to the end to me for approval. It actually just shows at the moment that it's the business unit manager that needs to be approved. So we haven't actually got to the next step. So I actually can't approve this at the moment. So if I went to, as Brendan Lucas, if I went to requires my decision, so this is normally where you go to as an individual, there's nothing that actually needs my approval right now. So that then takes away all the noise, and it's really good for me. I only approve a few bills in my business, and I go, cool, there's nothing for me to worry about. That's fine. But if I'm worried about my business or a client to go, hey, what are we waiting on approval? Who are we going to chase up? I can see that here. So I'm thinking that might answer your question. The other way to sort of get that oversight, just looking at the reports, which I mentioned before, if you go to the reports feature, there's some, you can set up your own reports as well, but there's some really good basic ones. So bills pending approval. So you click on this one, and this shows you the bills, who you're waiting on, and then who it is. So then you can sort of sort or whatever you need to here. Now, one of the things you can do is then do report setup. So you can then bring in some more columns. So what I usually like to do is probably bring in the account code and maybe bring in the net or the gross amount, and that can be really helpful. And then you can see who's already approved it, who we're waiting on, and if I do done, that can sort of then give you a bit of a snapshot of where your bill approval process is up to. So I'm hoping that answers the question.
Cool. Otherwise, I'm sure they'll ask it another way. Next question. If the team leader or someone that is the second or third position changes the data, like cost center, would the approval workflow start again? If yes, do we have an alternative to that?
Yeah, no, good question. So I'm
Yeah,
just checking here again with the approval workflows. The way that I understand it works is you can only have reviewers at the first level, basically for that reason. So you wouldn't, so here at this second level, we don't have the ability to set a reviewer. We've only got approvals. And so you don't actually have the ability, as far as I'm aware, to edit. So that stops that happening. But let's say that there was an error. What you would want to happen? And I'm going to jump in here now and just sort of show you this. So I'm going to go on approval. And let's say I'm not happy with this. It's not up to my approval, but I know it's wrong. So I'm jumping in. I'm going to reject it. Because it's not my approval step, I've got to use the force button. So I can go force the rejection, go, look, this is too high. They have charged us for X who left in March. Please get this reissued. So basically by rejecting it, what happens with the bills, it then goes into the draft section of Xero. And so then it needs to get sorted, either deleted, fixed up, and then back in awaiting approval, and you will start that approval process again. So I guess that's the workflow. So you don't have that risk of someone changing something after someone's already thought they knew what they approved.
Awesome. Love it. Next question. I think this one might be an easy one for you. So does an ApprovalMax approver also need to be a user in Xero or QBO or whatever the software is?
No. And that's the beauty of it, right? Is you don't want, the whole idea of ApprovalMax is to be able to have some sort of ownership around bills, but then not have this whole access to Xero, because we know that the user access levels of Xero, there's not as much, I guess, flexibility is what you can turn on and turn off. So this really does allow you to just show them what they need to show. And I guess to sort of further prove that, for my own benefit, I can come in here and look at my users. And I should just have myself. But I've got 3 different people working at ApprovalMax. So yeah, so that is a big plus feature of ApprovalMax.
Absolutely, because if you don't need them in the GL making a mess of other stuff, it's like, hold on, and think about it from a client's perspective. Like, let's say you've got you work with a few different business owners, right? So it's like, cool, I can actually keep the business owner out of their file, or maybe limited to their access in the file, so that they don't make a mess of it. So yeah, all the bookkeepers, kind of raise your hand if you think that's a great idea.
And I think the other part, just on that, Trent, it's that business owners, but then it's also going, well, look, I've got too much on my plate as a business owner. I need my team to take responsibility, but I don't want them seeing how much money I'm making, or the bank account, or all the other expenses. I just need them to look at these couple of expense codes. So by being able to just give them that only is awesome. Like in my business, I've got one client who just gets the one staff member who just gets the bills related to our self-managed super fund work. So those account codes only, so disbursements and class software and all that. That's all they see. They don't see anything else. But it meant that was one thing I could then get them to have ownership of, which ultimately, helps the business owner.
Yeah, awesome. Next question is coming from Ash. Ash is working in the non-for-profit charity sector. The question: ApprovalMax bills feature the work/sync with QBO. I'm asking this question since most of the new features work with Xero, but not QBO in this initial phase. So do you know the ins and outs of the QBO integration at all, mate?
I don't, unfortunately, Trent. So I will, we'll have to get ApprovalMax to get back to Ash. But be good to hear from someone else working in the non-for-profit sector. But we'll get you an answer. Yeah,
and Ash, there is that webinar that's in the chat. So it's 3 o'clock this afternoon. It is with Justin Campbell, who is a technical product specialist at ApprovalMax. Definitely recommend jumping on and asking that question. But otherwise, I know the ApprovalMax team will also come back to you with more info on that. Mate, are you happy to keep going questions, or did you want to anything?
No, let's keep answering what people have got on their minds.
Because there's at least another 7.
Oh.
Love it. So, Mel, I'll skip. Your question was around editing functionality being available in QBO. I'm going to let the team come back to you on that just based on my last point.
Yes.
So I'll put that one down. All right. Rebecca asked, if using tracking categories in Xero, can you split the same GL code amongst different people to approve for different tracking codes?
Oh, I haven't had to look at one with a mix for a while, so I'll tag that for ApprovalMax, but my gut feel is that you can either approve the bill or you don't approve the bill. So I don't think you can because I don't think that would work, because if someone part approved it and someone, until it was fully approved, it wouldn't move to awaiting payment. So my gut feel is that doesn't work, but I might we'll get the technical team to come back to you on that one.
My gut feeling is also the same. I don't think you'd be able to part approve part of the bill and wait for someone to do the other.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's where and I think we might have had this issue in the past. So what we got the supplier to do was to issue 2 different invoices. So basically to split it up for the different programs they were running. Or I think where that didn't work, we actually got the same bill and we entered it as 2 different bills in Xero with a different tag at the end. So we could track it, get the approval done, and still pay them and sort of rec it back for the supplier. So I think that could be some workarounds to consider.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, mate. Next question coming back from Spring. Welcome back. It says, can we add an approver if my workflow is not working properly? I don't know. We probably need a bit more detail on that one, I think, in terms of why isn't the workflow working properly. Spring, if you want to ask that question again for us.
I might know what that is, Trent. I'll have a guess. So what can happen if we go to the workflow? So I go approval workflows. Let's say I go in here, and let's say that does not. Let's say I take this person out. So what happens now is the program lead approves everything except if they're paying themselves or that's against the consulting accounting code. So if I save this, anything that pays the program lead or the consulting and accounting code doesn't actually have an approver. So where basically your rules don't work, you can set up down here what's called a default approver. So basically a catch-all. And so I think that could be Spring's question. So where that's the case, all you do is just pick, and it's basically if there's no designated approver based on your criteria for that bill, here's a way that you can work around it. And you can just pick which person sort of gets all the leftovers. And you can do that at each step. Awesome. I think that's the question.
Yeah. Rebecca has come back with that question before we said about splitting tracking categories. She mentioned she's not talking about splitting bills. She means saying the tracking is different locations. One person approving the Hawke's Bay bills and then another doing other regions. So I think it's saying if the rule is, and I don't know if this exists, so this is good that you're here, mate. If the bill was a particular location, can we then route it to a particular approver?
So what I just did, because I realized that I didn't have tracking categories set up in my Xero. So what I've tried to do is just resync. So this button up here basically then goes and gets your latest Xero data. So you can see most of it happens pretty frequently anyway. But if you need it sort of now, you can go in and push that button. And one of the big tips is if you've got a number of files, don't tick sync all, just go and tick the one you actually want to fix up. Now, I'm not sure how often the chart of account stuff's set up, but what I was looking at is I can't remember where, if you've got tracking categories set up, whether that'll come as an extra couple of columns. I haven't had to deal with that one for a while, so I'm not sure.
No, that's okay. Rebecca,
we're gonna flag that one, but
we'll come flag back that one, and we'll but I think hopefully and David has just confirmed that as well. The tracking categories do appear as new columns, so it's probably just a matter of getting it to sync with your file, mate. But then in turn, I guess that would mean that you could route a bill based on a location or a category to a particular person.
Yes. Yeah. So then basically it'll just be another rule like account names. It'll then be your tracking categories as well.
Yeah, cool. So Rebecca, we'll still confirm on that. so that you're across it. But David, thank you for your input here. David's saying that he has workflows route based off tracking categories, so good outcome. I've got a celebrity question from Mrs. Emily Mason. We work with residential.
Hi, Emily.
Welcome to the chat, Emily. We work with residential construction, and this would be so great for their purchase order invoice approvals. How long does it take on average to get the account set up and humming? How long does it take to set up ApprovalMax?
Look, typically, short answer is not long, but I guess it really depends on how complicated you want your workflow. So if you've only say got 2 or 3 people to split all your bills between them, might be by account names, and then 1 or 2 people the next levels, you can do that really quickly. So particularly where you say grab and go, look, let's grab any account except for, that can be a good way to sort of do it in bulk. But again, you look at if I want to go account matches, all I got to do is go, right, yep, that one, not that I have bills against sales, but once you click all these, whatever account names you want, then basically away you're basically there. You set up the users, and then you do the next level, you're done. So that's the main thing you have to set up. There's some other cool settings and features behind the scenes, but to get the bare basics done, it's really just the workflow. So I always encourage, if we're going to set up ApprovalMax for a client, that we're clear on how the ApprovalMax rules should work for the workflow for the bills. So once we've got that clear, then we can give it to someone and go, hey, go and set it up like this. Here's your rules. Once that's done, invite the users in, put the bills starting through awaiting approval, and away you go. And then you just tweak around the edges where it doesn't work. And the main message we say is to approvers, hey, if this isn't your account code or it doesn't make sense, just reject it. Whoever's managing the system can then learn. We can tweak it, and then it'll be fine. So, if I didn't have a full calendar this afternoon, I would easily have probably 2 or 3 clients up and running this afternoon. It's really easy, and that is part of the sell. Is we love connecting apps to clients where it makes their life easy, where it doesn't take a lot of time, but we get most of the functionality quickly. It's a much easier sell than those ones where you have to do a really large upfront fee, or set aside a lot of time to actually get them up and running. So it's a good one to try. And again, monthly subscription, if it doesn't work, you can turn it off pretty quickly. But I haven't turned any off yet from all the ones I've turned on.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, the feedback internally is that it could be as little as 15 minutes. And if it's a little bit more complex, maybe less than 60 minutes. So, but again, team is there to support if you have questions, queries, need help. I'm conscious we've got 15 minutes, but I'm conscious that we also have lots of really good questions. So
cool.
I'm going to try and
I'll answer them a bit quicker this time.
No, you're right. I'm going to try and just pick the ones that'll help be relevant for all.
Yes.
I'll start with Jono. Jono, welcome. Can you add multiple suppliers or multiple accounts to be approved by the same business unit manager in one workflow?
And I think this is what I'm showing here now, is you can. So basically, you can pick as many as you want. So that way, if you don't want to do everything except, you can go just the ones that match this. So yes, you can do that.
Awesome. Sasha, your question was, and I think I know the answer to this, which is always a good sign. What happens if you reject it rather than edit it, but then you approve it so that management knows they are making coding mistakes? My answer, based on what you showed before, this is me learning, is that if you've rejected it, it's moved it back to draft, and you've left your comment on the rejection, Sasha, to say bill rejected for the reason being. I think the idea is that you're sending it back to them to then send it back to you once they've approved and fixed the mistake. I think if you're editing the bill and then approving it, that's not the way they're going to learn. You're going to have to reject it, show them they've done the wrong thing, and then they can recode it and send it back to you for approval. Brendan, how did I go?
Yeah, look, you've got it. And look, I'm just showing the bill here now that we rejected earlier. So that's now in the draft bucket for those that are watching. What's really cool here is you've got this link here, go to ApprovalMax. So I can jump in here, and this will now take me to the section. So my guy sort of each morning will go, okay, what's in draft? Let's deal with it. hey, it's rejected. Why was it rejected? I know why. Cool. I've spoken to them. They were wrong. I was right. I now go save and submit for approval. And now we're back and going again. And that's now in awaiting approval. ApprovalMax will resync shortly. And then when it does, it will be back sitting there waiting for approval.
Amazing. I think I know the answer to the next one as well. Wendy, thank you for your question. If you change the codes in ApprovalMax and approve it, will it change the codes in Xero?
Yes, definitely. And that's the beauty of it, right? Is that the sync sort of both ways is that you don't have to go and do it in Xero. It's done within your workflows that you set up.
Yeah, awesome. Sharon asked, if you change a bill and force the decision, will the workflow start again? I don't think so.
Once you force the decision, if you then approve it, then it's approved. So yeah. It's only if you move a bill into awaiting approval that you'll see it again. And with Xero, once you've approved it, you can't move it back. You'd have to create or copy a bill to actually get something back into awaiting approval.
Yes. Awesome. David, you could have multiple steps where each person approves sequentially based off the GL code, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So, and this is typically what we'd have is you go, on one GL code, it could be business unit manager, then the next person for the same, doesn't need to even have a dollar threshold, right? It could just be, hey, if it's consulting and accounting, this person approves, then this person approves, then this person approves. But there might be another account code where you don't only need one approver. So you can be as, it's very flexible as to how you design it. I haven't had one yet where someone we couldn't put it into ApprovalMax. And my thoughts would be, if you can't put it in ApprovalMax, my first thoughts is revisit what your workflow process is and have you made it too complicated?
Yeah. Thank you, mate. Tim, does ApprovalMax have a comprehensive example of workflow approvals, specifically relating expenses? Because Brendan, you've shown where an approver can't approve their own expenses as an example.
Look, I think, again, we'll see go back to the ApprovalMax team and see what they've got that they can share. But I think otherwise, I think
templates, right? Like having a template workflow.
It's interesting because I'd say that every client's a little bit different, but I think if you're trying to see a larger scale example of what it looks like, ApprovalMax might have some better demo versions already set up where they can then run that PDF report and sort of show you what that would look like to give you a better flavor. Where mine's probably a little bit more basic at this point.
Yeah. Next question also from Tim was, how do we represent a transaction that has been rejected by QBO after it's been approved? We don't want to go through the approval process again. So it's been approved, QBO's rejected it for whatever reason. They don't want to I would assume you're adjusting and editing it in QBO if you don't want it to go back through ApprovalMax.
I would have thought so, but I don't know the QBO process well enough. But that'd be my gut feel is how to do it. But yeah, we'll have to take that one for the support team.
Yeah, I think even just logically based on like how that would flow. Tim, we'll make note of that one as well. Thanks for the question. 11 minutes. Let's keep going. If the invoice is entered with separate line items against separate tracking categories, and choose that all approval steps need to be approved, then it would work, right? I think this is coming back to
I think that's coming back. Yeah, I think that's coming back to that earlier question, Trent. So I think that's more the answer to it, which is helpful. So someone's used tracking categories more than I have.
Yeah, I love that we're all helping each other. This is wonderful. Mel, you asked, can you limit the tax codes available to requesters? To
requesters, I think they might be reviewers. I think so. Yeah. As far as I know, I think it's open as far as what you can do, because really it's only about sort of which accounts they can look at. So I don't think you can stop someone from saying picking GST free or BAS excluded, which I think is the question. So so there is a lot of I guess trust responsibility on that role, and and I guess a bit of flexibility so that if it needs to be fixed, it can. So I haven't had to think about restricting that at this point. My thoughts would be, if you're that concerned about the person making changes incorrectly, I'd probably go with the reject and get the bookkeeping team to deal with it, rather than give that person that too much power to change things.
Yeah, awesome. Very good. Thank you. Caleb, your question was, I'm new to playing with the system, having trouble matching invoice with purchase order when account codes don't match. The invoice is coming in from HubDoc. Any advice around forcing this efficiently, or do we have to recode?
Yeah. I do a little bit with POs, but my gut, again, just sort of working it through, my gut feeling is you would need to recode, because the whole idea of a purchase order process is to say, hey, this is what we're going to spend the money on, this supplier, this amount, this account code, and then a bill comes in. So if those sort of key fields don't match, then to me, it doesn't make sense that they would sync. So I think there must be something not aligned there right as to why the purchase order and the bill aren't the consistent code. So I think it's more of a recode issue there.
Yeah, cool. Questions on budget in ApprovalMax. So currently the budget doesn't sync with Xero, and when bills are processed via Xero directly, the budget in ApprovalMax doesn't update. Any thoughts on this? Any workarounds? Is that something you've experienced before, Brendan?
I haven't, probably because if we're doing with the way we structure it, is that if we're using ApprovalMax for bills, we use ApprovalMax for all bills. And having that sort of force button to jump ahead and get things done quickly if you need to. So, I guess it's something that ApprovalMax will need to be aware of, though, so they can maybe rework the background rules so they can try to pick up from Xero just as a catch-all. Because I'm imagining the other issue could be journals as well. So, I'll pass it on to the ApprovalMax team to consider for future updates.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. If you're using it, you should be using it for all bills, not partial, because then now you're in two workflows of when do I manually do it through Xero, or when do I do it through ApprovalMax. If you've got one track to follow, then every single time that process should work without fail. So the answer, just use ApprovalMax for all bills. Maybe. I'm sure there might be more to it. Ash, your question, it's a workflow question. And just from memory, Brendan, Ash was non-for-profit charity sector.
Yes.
Workflow question. Our chart of accounts having direct start with 5 series and indirect starting with a 6 series GL codes. Can we restrict 6 series GL codes in bulk to the direct cost manager and vice versa?
Yeah, no, we've had this issue as well. So I think what we're looking at here is there a way that we can, rather than go and select each account name, can we just say all the accounts from 200 to 300 or all the 200s all just go into this workflow with a click of the button? And so far that is not possible. So you've actually got to go and click them all. But the good thing will be, if you're using account numbers and they're in order, you'll see that this list sorts in order. So if I want to do all the 400s, I've just got to click here. And once I've done all my 400s, I'm done. So there's actually no way to do this in bulk at present. So that's
cool.
The best you can do. But yeah, that's how you work around it in the short term.
Yeah. Joanne, your question. If you use HubDoc, can you choose awaiting payment to bypass ApprovalMax, e.g. monthly rent, power, things that I guess just would need to automatically be approved if it met the criteria?
Yeah. I couldn't see why you can't with HubDoc. I know with Dexport, which is what most of our clients are using, when they're not auto synced across to Xero, we can change the bill status that it comes across in. The only one I would say there is whether there should still be someone approving it, because part of what can happen sometimes with these systems is the bill can go through twice. There can be a CPI increase that goes through and no one knew. So as part of your overall workflow, it's still worthwhile to make sure that there is an approval, but it may be one where you don't need, multi-layer. But I think having an approval process, if you're using ApprovalMax, to Trent's point earlier, I think you're all in. Otherwise, you've got too many different ways to do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. All right, we've got 5 minutes. So we're gonna limit us down. We're gonna do maybe 1 or 2, depending on how they go, and then from that we need to start wrapping the session. It's been awesome. I mean, geez, so many questions, so much engagement. Audience, you really brought your A game today, and I like it. So well done. Jolene, you said, have you ever come across account code error once a bill is approved and an auto rejection has occurred?
No, not that I can. I'm trying to follow it, but no, I haven't seen that issue before. No. Yeah.
Cool. And we might, Jolene, if there's another question on that, feel free to send it. We'll get the team to come back to you on it. Is there a way? I don't think the answer. I don't think this is possible, but you'll tell me if I'm wrong. Is there a way to prevent users approving in Xero if they have Xero and ApprovalMax access?
Christy, unfortunately not. So that's something that Xero doesn't allow you to do that. If you need them to have access to the bill system, then they can jump in and go around the system. The good thing is, at least in ApprovalMax settings, you can set somewhere where you get notified when a bill is approved outside of ApprovalMax. So that might be at least a safeguard around it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the other point would be, just checking, do they need access to Xero? Because if they can only do it through ApprovalMax, and again, my point before, there's only one way to do this, then that limits your, there's only one track. You can't fall off the track. If there's 2 tracks, then it's very easy for people to choose which path to take, and we want to limit that. I'm going to wrap there. Brendan, mate, you're going to need a little water. You did awesome. If we were in a room together, we'd all be like, flowers, music, round of applause. It'd be a magical time. So firstly, if you're still in the chat, please thank Brendan for letting us scrape his brain for the far corners of things he didn't know was coming. So Brendan, thank you, mate, for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed the session, team. There is a session with a technical expert this afternoon, which is Justin Campbell, and that's more product technical. So Brendan's background is accounting. He knows the ins and outs of why you should do this as the accounting and payable side. The discussion with Justin this afternoon is more technical. So if you do have more technical questions, you can chuck those in. We've shared that in the chat, and we're going to share it one more time here. And before we do that, what I want to just ask is, do you need any help? If you want to start a trial on ApprovalMax, we recommend that you should totally do that. We think it's a pretty sweet and slick product. So I'm putting that in the chat for you. You can check and do that from there. But if you need further help, if you want more information, I'm putting that in our poll right now that just says, are you interested in learning more? And part of that is, do you need questions or help from our team? We can get our sales team to give you a call, the support team, whatever your queries are. So you can just tick, yes, please, I'd like to learn more. I'm thinking about signing up. If you've got an existing question and you're an existing customer, that's fine, throw that in there. If you're at the other side saying, no, thank you, this was great, Brendan, you answered all my questions, you can tick that box. But awesome, I can see some good comments in the chat. And obviously you're here because you think ApprovalMax is the answer to your problems. And we hope that we've been able to help you get closer to that decision. And if you do need more help, again, just let yourself know on the poll so that we can reach out and help you get started. Brendan, any parting words or thoughts or any comments, mate?
Look, thanks everyone for their involvement. These are much more fun when people ask questions. So sorry to those we couldn't get to today. Hopefully that helps you either better use ApprovalMax, or if you're not already using it, to go and give it a go, because you won't turn back.
We answered 36 questions just then.
Is that what's the record I have to hit next time?
Well, 36 is the new record. So when we do this again
right.
next month, we have to beat that. So I've ended that poll. Thank you, friends. Thanks for coming. On behalf of ApprovalMax, we hope you've had an enjoyable session. You'll get an email with a recording after this. So if you want to go back through that, you can. Jolene, you will get a copy of the recording and it'll automatically get sent to you. And good to hear some of you have registered for the afternoon. So awesome. Well done. Congrats, everyone. Thanks for coming. Have a great day. Thank you, Brendan. and we'll be in touch with you all soon.
See you, Rob.
Thanks, mate. Bye.